All right, we're continuing on with section 2.3 notes today. The section 3 kind of goes on with what we did yesterday in slope, but we get into the linear equations. So we're going to start with some concepts that you've covered before, the y-intercept and the x-intercept. The y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis. And just a reminder, the y-axis is vertical and the x-axis goes left to right, horizontally. So the y-intercept is positive 2, because here's 1, 2. So it's at positive 2 for the y value. The x value is going to be 0. All right, and the x-intercept, x is 3 and y is 0. Okay, so the intercepts are the points where they cross the x-intercept and the y-intercept. I want to make a little note here. Y is always 0 at x-intercept. And x is always 0 at y-intercept. So that's true no matter what. Whenever there's a y-intercept, x is 0. At the x-intercept, y is always 0. Okay, then some different equations. Slope-intercept form should look very familiar to you. Y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope, and y is the, this should say b, is a typo. B is the y-intercept. And what we want to do is always get y by itself to get it in this form. Okay, so the typo is right here. It should say b equals the y-intercept. Okay, and then standard form is when you get the x and the y on the same side. And in here, a, b, and c are whole numbers. And x and y must be on the same side.
Can I get a custodian to the main?
Okay, and we don't use this one a lot, but I'm just going to show it that this is called standard form, where x comes first, then the y comes second, then it equals some number. So identify the slope and the y-intercept of the line. So in number 1, we have to get y by itself. So we're going to get rid of this x to get 2y equals negative x and a positive 7. Okay, and I always put the x's in front of the numbers, like right here. I'll put x in front of the 7. And then we divide by 2. And I like to get in the habit of dividing everything by 2 separately. So we end up with y equals negative 1/2 x plus 7 over 2. All right, so your slope is negative 1/2, and the y-intercept is 7 over 2. Okay, and just remember that this is an ordered pair. It's really 0, 7 over 2. But if you just put 7 over 2, I'll get what you mean. But just so you know, it is a point. It's an ordered pair. And then number 2, if we rewrite this, you can rewrite this as y equals 0x minus 9. Right? Because they didn't put down 0x. But if there's no x's, how many x's are there? There's 0. So in this one, the slope is 0. Right? And the y-intercept is at 0, negative 9. Because the y-intercept is a point. Okay, so getting y alone will give you the slope and the y-intercept. And then we can use this to graph them. So graph each of the following. And this is something you have done in Algebra 1 quite a bit. So we have y equals 2/3 x minus 1. All right, so first find the slope and find the y-intercept. So the slope is equal to 2/3, and the y-intercept is equal to -1. So if we graph this, we go to -1. Okay. The slope is up 2, so, sorry, the slope is 2/3, +2 or +3, so that means you go up 2 to the right 1, 2, 3. You could also do the opposite of that. Instead of going up 2 to the right 2, or up right 3, you go down 2 to the left 3. And your graph will look like this. Okay, so identify the slope and y-intercept, and then graph it. In number 2, they give you the x and the y-intercept. We can just plot those points on here. So if the x-intercept is 2, you go to the x-axis, and you go to +2. If the y-intercept is -5, go to the y-intercept, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and go down 5. And then you connect your dots. So if they give you the intercepts, it really is pretty quick to graph. And then our last example says find the intercepts and graph the equation, and then label the intercepts. Let's start by finding the intercepts. There's 2 ways you can actually find them. I'm going to show you the algebraic way. To find the x-intercept, what we do is plug 0 in for y. So y equals 0. You take your equation, and you do 5x minus 2 times 0 equals 5. And then this will give you the x-intercept because we already know y is 0. So it becomes 5x equals 5. Then divide by 5, x equals 1. Okay, and again, the whole reason we do this is because when we talked about intercepts, I'm going to slide back up here. For the x-intercept, y is always 0. For the y-intercept, x is always 0. So if I go back down, the x-intercept is at x is 1, y is 0. That's the intercept. Okay, to find the y-intercept, we plug in 0 for x. So x equals 0. Take your equation, 5 times 0 minus 2y equals 5. So we end up with -2y equals 5. Divide by -2, y equals -2.5. So you have x, you have y, and that is your intercept. So we could put these on the graph. The x-intercept is y10. The y-intercept is 0, -2.5. And I'm going to just keep those there. I'm going to show you that you could graph it this way, or you could graph it by solving for y. So if we solve for y, I'm going to do that over here. So 5x minus 2y equals 5. Let's get y alone. We're going to minus 5x from both sides. So we get -2y equals -5x plus 5. So we get rid of the 5x to get the 2y alone. Now we divide everything by -2. And again, get in the habit of dividing each thing by -2 separately. So then you'll get y equals 5/2 minus, and this is 2.5. This is what you get when you solve for y. The slope is 5/2. The y-intercept is -2.5. Yes, there is a point there. So when you graph it, you go down to -2.5 on your y, and then you go up 5 to the right 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. If you connect the dots, that line will go right through the two intercepts. So either way you graph it is fine. I just wanted to show that solving for y would work because that's the way we normally would graph. But you could also find the intercepts. It's nice to know how to find the intercepts as well because that can also be helpful down the road. All right, and that's all we got.